everyone, welcome back to episode 4, I believe, of A Day in the Life of Fle. So today I wanted to kind of take you guys a little bit into the process of what an artist space looks like. It's very interesting always to me when looking at any artist's art and always trying to figure out what the story is behind it. But as me as a personal artist, when I look at art, I also tend to think about the processes in the back. And so I've always wondered sometimes what those spaces look like when creating art. For me, some artist spaces are messy. Mine are not. I tend to actually like most of my studio in some sort of order, and then the actual workspace that I work in can be a little bit more messy, but not too much, because for me, everything is a quick process when working. I like to be able to grab my palette knives, grab my paint, and just start working at all. One of the frustrations sometimes that I'll have is having to look for something when I'm in the middle of creating. And that could be super frustrating. With my work, I tend to work with a lot of color, and I like a lot of texture. And for me, texture is a big part of it. So when I was first joining the studio space that I'm in now, it was very important to learn from my fellow peers and learn how their spaces sort of looked and how they kind of put things together for their artwork, and seeing how that affects their work. And it was so interesting seeing all the different artist spaces and seeing how different artists are sort of organized and put together, very similar to me, where it's easier for you to grab something. But I've also seen very interesting spaces that, artist paint is everywhere on the walls, on the floors, which I love because it's just a representation of process. Sometimes the space of an artist is just as creative and inspiring as much as the work, for me personally. The other thing I love about my space is that it shows history. It shows a trajectory of myself as an artist, from my much older work, from pieces like the visual poetry series, to work like Chaos and Rebel, and recently the summer pieces. It's a fabulous way to show your process as an artist. And I think also during studio times of things like open studios and or anyone you try to bring in for a studio visit, they really can see sort of that trajectory of this is the present work, this is the work I'm working on, this is the work of the past. And you're able to tell this beautiful story of an arc of your journey as an artist, which I think is really imperative to understanding any artist's art. I think if there's a way that you want to understand a piece, try to understand the artist's story, because it's a great way to really see the depths and processes of how that work is and where they're coming from, just on the basis of where their work has been. And, seeing the space of an artist too can give you a great idea of what that process is like, because then you can kind of see, it's kind of like when you go into anyone's home. If you go into anyone's home, you know how you can kind of tell the character or the story or the personality of a person. Think about it the same way we do for film or theater, when there's the set is just as important to the storytelling as everything else, because it really does give you an idea of where an artist's sort of mindset is, or like a character, if it's a film, who they are, and can speak volumes into their thought processes. So I always thought that was something really interesting to share. I wanted to give you guys a more input on my space, because I originally started doing art from my home, like a lot of past artists. I used to work on the living room floor in my Los Angeles apartment and sort of put a plastic on the floor. And mind you, I did get some of that carpet dirty, but my carpet was dirty before I got there. But either or, funny enough, I used to put plastic sheets on the floor and paint on the floor. That was my thing. I worked on the floor. In my younger days, as I was living back in the home I grew up in, I would paint from my bunk bed. Like, I'd always find spaces to paint. Having a studio space for me was really awesome and great, because it let me sort of unleash more freedom in a way. And so even if I got a little paint on the floor or got some paint on the table, it was like, okay, because this was the space that it's for. It's for you to create and unleash that. Sometimes the bit of restrictions, especially for me personally as an abstract artist, can feel a bit restrictive, which sometimes can be great, but other times can feel like, sort of defecating the art process. And I said defecating. I meant that. It really does feel like you're shitting on your process, because you're just like wanting to do a stroke here or there, and then you feel like you just have to do like this, and then that doesn't feel like the greatest, because you're just like, no, I want to slash them, go all over the place. So it was really nice having a space to actually freely do that. And I've been having an actual studio space now for 5 years, and 5 years and counting. And that's been so great. And I think it's done so well to have growth. And sometimes it's great to have that separation from space from home and space somewhere else. But anyway, I really wanted to share this with you guys and give you an opportunity to see my space and see a little bit of the history of my past work, and give you sort of like that angle of a story on the side of this, like the studio side of an artist. So I hope you guys enjoy it. If you can, please subscribe and like this video. And I hope to see you guys soon. Okay, thanks.